friend started that group chat?
Yeah, Marina. She's wonderful. She was the GM of Botanica for a while, and then she left that. I think she's doing like Blank Table, some like she's doing some I don't know what else she's doing, but yeah, she's out there in the world. She's really rad.
So Botanica, is that where's that bar?
North Park.
North Park. Okay. Is that like a cocktail spot, or I've never been? I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's an art space and cocktail bar, and there's like a garden. The art is it's the what do they call them? Those weird like things that you buy that are like online art that were like really big like 5-6 years ago or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
People were like spending money and buying like art that like only existed like online. I can't.
Oh, NFTs.
Yes, it's an NFT.
Okay.
I'm
so
like, what is it? Yeah, it's an NFT.
So they sell NFTs at Botanica?
I don't think they sell them. I think that or maybe I actually don't know, but the art that's hanging is like digitally hung.
Okay, so they're displaying the NFTs and stuff. That was a huge thing. Everyone thought that was the next like Bitcoin and
dude, how much money?
It's silly, right?
Like people were dumping like millions of dollars on like something that
it's the blockchain.
It's like a file on their computer now.
Yeah. Well,
can you imagine having that much money?
They thought that was going to be the next thing, like the next social media or the next,
Yeah.
I worked with a guy who was like super into that. He's trying to convince me, it's like an investment in anything. Like I see bottles of whiskey and liquor that are going for like $150,000. And I'm like, how do you like, who's the kind of person that's buying a bottle of liquor for arguably up to a $250,000? It's an investment. It's saying, I'm going to buy this. It's going to age for 15, 20 years. And then maybe I can flip it for more.
Yeah, I think that my hope is a couple of things. That their palate is so much more refined than mine that they're like, wow, this is so delicious. Or they're like, this whiskey was made in a part of Ireland that my family's from, and to have a piece of history, I'm going to spend that. I hope that there's a story there that like makes it worth it, because otherwise I'm like, dog, $150,000.
Seriously. Yeah. The nostalgia aspect, so that's actually cool. So I have this right here. This is an old, liquor bottle.
Oh, cool.
So my family ran a liquor store back in the early 1900s in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I found this. I bought this online actually. This is like an original 100-piece old like canteen. Yeah, seriously, that'd be fucking brutal. It's kind of cool, but it's like what we're talking about, like.
Yeah.
But I spent $100 on that, so.
I mean, that's really rad.
It's cool, right?
Yeah,
like
the
my family,
on there.
my family comes from, retail stores and sales aspects back like pre-World War II and stuff. So I thought that would be kind of a cool little thing to have for the display. But well, cheers, dude. Thank you for coming out and joining me. I appreciate you.
Cheers, a little morning water. Cheers, absolutely.
So you kind of have a really cool journey in this industry.
Thanks.
You have 2 decades of experience working in the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up? What state?
I grew up in Florida.
So you grew up in Florida, and you bartended in New York City for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
You did Las Vegas bartending for a little while.
I did.
And now you've been out in San Diego for 6-8 years or so. 6
years, yeah.
And you did 6 years working at Turf Supper Club, which is sort of like an old school OG spot here in the city.
Yeah.
I guess my first question is like how'd you get into the industry, and can you kind of take me from like, I don't know, like what made you get into this industry in your first job to like where you are now?
Sure.
Just tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I started, I think in Florida, the age was like 15. You could start working. So I was out in Panera Bread making ices. And then I knew I was going to move to New York. I was at a high school that was a magnet for performing arts and all that. And I knew that I wanted to move to New York.
Oh, man, this is not going so well. Anyways,
I think it's going great. You know what I mean? No, yeah.
Some technical difficulties. I can edit this out, but I'm sorry.
Why? That's part of life right there.
Let me take these books down. Okay, sorry, guys. You won't be in the promo shot. Sorry to these creative.
Yeah, who's in there? Who are we saying goodbye to?
We're saying goodbye to Alan Peters.
Fare thee well, Alan. Thank
Peters
you so much for your work.
Amy McNee.
Wow,
Great
those are
books.
some great covers too.
Next
yeah.
episode. Okay. So I'm sorry, before I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. So I knew I was going to move to New York, and I was like, I should really get some fine dining experience. So at the age of like 16, 17, while I was still like in high school, I started working at a fine dining place in Florida. Wow. Because I was like, I need to have some like good experience to take with me when I moved to New York. Huh. And
you knew at that age?
I
you wanted
did.
To move to
I
New
don't
York
know. I really did.
Huh.
Even my parents were like, okay, wow, yeah. So yeah, I moved to New York, and I worked like a kind of a crappy job to start, but that was very short-lived. And then my first like real job that I worked for years, and I tend to be a person who like finds a job and works there for a long time. And I worked at this place called Relish. It was on North 3rd and Wythe in Williamsburg, in like the dawn of Williamsburg, 03, 04. I'm 18, 19, and I just aged myself.
So this is like post 9/11, a couple years after 9/11.
Yeah.
New York City's still kind of coming out of that frenzy.
Yeah.
Because I know that tore up the restaurant industry, the whole city, but like.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess I don't really feel like I had a sense of that, maybe because of where I was, and like Williamsburg was all young, like artists, like a lot of industrial like spaces that were being sort of like, you know, turned from industrial into like art spaces.
I'm trying to picture Williamsburg back then, because today in 2025, it's like incredibly expensive, nice, new, but back then it was still kind of coming up, right?
Yeah, it was really cool. I always tell people it's like being on it was like being on a college campus where everyone is like your age and hot and artistic, and you're like, wow, I want to bang everybody in this neighborhood. Like that's how it felt. But it was like a lot of industrial spaces. So it was, you know, just weird, like manufacturing, like big brick buildings. And then there was like peppered in there was like a burgeoning scene of like, there was Dumont, which ended up having also like Dumont Burger. There was Relish, and then there was Diner, and then a couple other places, like one that was called Cokies, which eventually became the Levy. Just like a couple little places in that neighborhood, but ultimately, you know, there was only a small handful of places to go, so we were really busy.
Okay.
And I served there until I was like of age to start pouring drinks, and so I'd sort of been like pouring drinks probably before I was, you know, really of age to do it, like learning, and then started bartending like right at 21.
Nice.
And worked there for a long time, and then worked at a place in the East Village, 7A, which had been there since the 90s. Super dope. And I just like bartended spots that were like kind of like, I think my entire bartending career has been those spaces that are like not quite a dive, definitely pull in like artistic people, neighborhood people, and like are really successful because of the vibe that they cultivate. Okay. And we're making cocktails. There has to be cocktail knowledge, but we're also like one-and-oneing like Jack and Cokes and poppin' buds, you know, like nothing. It's like kind of borders. It's not too serious. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, in between. I feel like there's like a bunch of those bars that are coming up right now. I see they're like dive bars that are trying to be cocktail bars, and they kind of try to play to both. It's kind of tough. It's tough to kind of do both of that. But
I do too, to do it well. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen that ultimately at the end of the day, I don't know. These days people are like are they looking for a grammable experience? Like what? I'm not quite sure what the folks out there are looking for.
Yeah.
Like, do they you work at a place where it seems like, from what I understand, is very like one-on-one, like you bringing your personality to the regulars that you see, very important.
Yep. And
then there are so many places, especially here in San Diego, where I don't know the kids really care about
the culture's different. I mean, we're like 3 or 4 years out of COVID, and the whole dynamic of foot traffic has changed. A lot of people are working from home. Numbers are down, at least where I was in New York City and New Jersey and now San Diego. definitely since before COVID. So you have to adapt and evolve to the culture. Like like what we used to be a huge lunch spot, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like there's 3 days of the week we don't open for lunch. And even on the days we do, it's hit or miss. And sometimes it's so you got to kind of figure that out. You got to roll with the times. And it's like, nobody expected this to happen, but like, how do you adapt and evolve to the things that are given in front of you? So yeah, it is like, how do you, and the world is so expensive now with just goods and rent and everything. And you see bars closing down every other week out here. So like, how do you, manage and maneuver that? It's an interesting question. I don't have the answer to it, but
yeah. And also like, what do we as humans, like, what are we looking for when we go out? Like, are we back to a place where we're like craving that connection with a bartender and like want to have that moment? Like, or have we gotten so far away from that because of COVID that now it's just like, oh, I'm going to that space. We're going to sit on the patio. So you better have a friend. You don't go solo. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really, because of the social, that did affect a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I think that's, I think it's like, I do, a lot of people who come see me at least, struggle connectionally.
Yeah.
And that's why they're there having a drink, trying to talk. Stout Public House is like a neighborhood spot.
Yeah.
So it's like, everybody's talking to each other. It's very casual. It's like tight. And, yeah, I think that's really important for people. And that's like kind of my school of thought that I've always worked in restaurants is. I've done the sports bars and the clubs aspect, but even at those spots, you have your daytime regulars and the people that are there that you build those relationships with. And I have always found that there's so many different avenues in this industry, whether it's the sports bars, the clubs, the neighborhood spots, the cocktail bartenders, the strip clubs, whatever it is. Like my lane has always been the conversational aspect and the connection with the people. And I always found that to be like, in my journey, more important than building the product of the cocktail. But that's just my perspective.
No, I'm right there with you. I have this distinct memory of when I was working in the East Village. And it was like, again, like one of those like first generation 90s, like weird art everywhere. It was 24-hour spot. And I was bartending and this guy came in and he was just asking for directions to like some other place. And he was an odd duck. Like he looked very similar to like Uncle Fester as a character. And I think he was used to people being really off put by him. And I just was like, jamming and like being silly and like telling him where to go and start a little conversation. And he became a regular of mine for years. And like the kind of regular who like throws you $50-$100 every time. And like, we would have like deep, like long conversation. I found out he was driving in from Jersey to my little bar in the East Village just to come hang out. And I asked him about it one day and cause I didn't realize that was a story. He's like, oh, if you don't remember, I was looking for directions to go somewhere else that night, but you were so nice that like, and it's that connection. And we built a relationship over the years and just like friendliness and true community and what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I feel like there's such a strong aspect of like you just said, why are people going out to bars? Some people don't have acceptance at other places in their lives. And if you can, like, you have a long career in this industry. So I think we developed this ability to like, read people a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you can see somebody who's constantly being judged in their lives and sort of be like, yo, I kind of see you, and provide a comfortable, warm, friendly welcome to those people, like a lot of people really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, in my life experience and like my genuine perspective. So it's funny that we came to this point rather quickly, but I think one of the ultimately like the most important things in life is to see and be seen. Like truly like see and honor someone's experience and how it differs from your own, and allow yourself to be seen and to be accepted. I just think that that's like such a great gift to exchange with someone.
I know, because we know what it feels like when we don't have that,
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I asked you to come here today, was because, I reached out to you and you kind of told me about your history, and I was like, oh, I bet this person has a lot of knowledge, because like you do a lot of these veteran bartenders. You did the New York City, Vegas, San Diego, and you worked at, when you were in Vegas, you were at Atomic Liquors for 3 years, which is a super old school bar, which I've actually been to, 24 hours, great spot. And then you've been out here, and I find value in like my customers and picking their brains and learning about their experiences, because I think it's cool to learn about people, and everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story and life experience. And I think like sharing those experiences, I think we're coming to this like time in 2025 where like we're giving people this ability to be open and express themselves, which whatever it is they want to do with that. But it's about like growth. And so, yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And you also have, so you've kind of told me about, you do Chinese medicine and acupuncture.
Yes. So I moved to San Diego specifically for this graduate program. So I just finished that said graduate program and am now double board certified as an acupuncturist and herbologist. Yeah. In Chinese medicine. So, yeah.
So what made you want to go down that road?
Well, I had a nervous breakdown. I had a mentee B in New York, like after 12 years in New York. If I'm being totally frank, I did some bad drugs at an after party and landed myself in like a state of psychosis for like a year.
Oh, wow.
And I finally just was like, I need to take a step back from New York and just like get back to myself. And I went down to Florida where my family was, and I went to a lecture about the Eastern versus Western medicinal approaches to anxiety and depression that was offered by this guy who ran an East-West clinic. And I loved what he had to say. I chatted with him afterward. And then I ended up going, he was like hosting like an intern clinic, so I could go get like cheap treatment, like $20. And it was probably like 4 treatments. I would say that, it was like someone took a squeegee and squeegeed all the gunk away. And I felt like for the first time in like a year that I was like restored to my like normal state. And wow. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I kept sort of just like bartending. And then I moved to Vegas for a music opportunity, because at the time that's what I'd been doing in New York. And then in Vegas was pursuing a music career that bartending was supporting. And it was like a few years into that, the opportunity was like overpromised, underdelivered. And I was like, I'm in music and bartending, and neither of these industries are like super great for aging women. Like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Like, and what is my purpose? I feel like that's kind of like it's like, that like early 30s, like what I want to do, what is my purpose?
That's what I'm going through.
Yeah. And I, was like, holy crap, of course, like if I could gift one person with the experience that I had, I got to learn how to do that shit, man. I got to learn how to do that. Yeah. So I started researching schools, and I visited a bunch of them. And the school that I went to has a campus in Chicago and in New York. But I was like, grad school in a major bustling city? I don't think so. I'm going to go to sunny San Diego. So that's how I landed here and got into it.
So what is acupuncture? Like, I'm not really familiar. It's like when you say that, I'm thinking like they stick the needles in your back. Is that what that is?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the back. It's like all over.
So what does that do to people?
Yeah. So I take it you've never had acupuncture.
No, never. Not once.
Haley, we're going to have to get you on acupuncture.
Absolutely.
Baby. Yeah. So there are many lenses through which to sort of like approach how it has efficacy. But essentially, the body is made up of meridians, or it could be like, you could think of it as like fascial planes or things like that sort of run throughout the body, that circulate like blood, what we call chi, which could be like mitochondria or energy. And oftentimes through the course of living, those meridians and fascial planes get sort of like stagnated. Maybe it's from an injury. Maybe it's from emotions. There are a lot of pathologies in Chinese medicine via which like stagnation forms. And the intention is that by like needling into these like points along these meridians, you're helping restore the natural flow of your body's fluids, blood fluids, and energetic force. So it's kind of just bringing your body back into homeostasis. And there are, again, like lots of lenses through which people see that. Like you could think of it as needles are metal and they're going into fascia, which is electroconductive tissue. So that's like kind of a more like Western approach to thinking like how it functions. And then there are definitely deeper, like more shamanistic roots of Chinese medicine that have different perspectives on that. So
is this is kind of like an alternative to like taking a bunch of medications and sort of like a naturopathic like alternative? Is that what it is?
I mean, it's a holistic medicine. It's an Eastern approach to medicine. So it looks at the body as a whole and what it would look like for that whole vessel to be in ideal health, and looking at what your symptoms are. Like maybe you come in because you're like, I keep having headaches, or like I keep having, whatever your chief complaint is. And then your practitioner should ask you a lot of questions like, cool, how's your digestion? Like, what emotionally have you been dealing with lately? Any other pain in the body? Like any ringing in the ears? And we look at like all of these different aspects of your health, and it starts to paint a picture of a pattern. And so then we can, like treat it with acupuncture alone. We may treat it with like an herbal prescription, but it's the idea of like, what can we get your body into the habit of taking care of itself, so that you're not just treating the branch of a problem, which by like maybe medicating, like, oh, I pop an Advil for these headaches. It's like, let's get down to like why you're having these headaches.
Look at the root.
Let's look at the root.
I really like that because I hate taking prescription medications, whether it's painkillers or Advil or any of that stuff. And I do have like little things going on that I'm trying to not let become big things. Mm-hmm. But like I really try. I've been doing the CBD, which has helped. But like I think because it's so easy to get addicted to those things, and it's like they just cover up the problem. They don't actually solve it. And that's like my train of thought is like I try to fix like resolve these issues, not mask pain.
Sure. And for pain, I would say that I definitely want to make sure that I'm clear that Western medicine and some prescriptions have a great place. And I think that there's a really great handshake between Eastern and Western medicine. So I don't want to poo-poo those who really need to utilize some things. Just disclaimer. Right.
Like I brought my friend Chelsea on here, and she was like, like I can't fix a broken leg. Like don't come to me for a broken leg,
Exactly. I can help speed up the healing once you've gotten like that mended and have a cast on it. Like I can help speed the healing for sure. But there are tons of things that we can do for pain management. Yeah.
I think that's a cool thing that you've gotten into this route from like working in these, because like I think that, I think working in restaurants for your whole career, here's what I'll say. I give people who have done this for their whole career a lot of props, because I think there's this stigma around working in bars and restaurants that like anybody could do it. Oh, he's just a bartender or whatever. And I think that like to do it a little bit when you're young, or to do it for a summer or a part-time job is like one thing, but like the people who are lifers and the people who do give themselves to this industry, whether you're a chef or a cook or a bartender, manager, owner, like it takes a lot physically and mentally out of you.
It really does. It really does. Truly. I mean, and I think about that a lot from an Eastern medical point of view in terms of the amount of time that folks in the service industry spend on their feet, the amount of times they're doing repetitive motions. So they're using a joint over and over again in a way, and also touching wet things constantly and touching cold things constantly, which often like does create more stagnation. Like cold and damp are Eastern pathological like forces that can really like add to the hindering of like, movement and create more pain stories.
Yeah. And it's like over 10, 20 years, I mean, you see these things. So like, I guess And like so stout's an industry, it's got an industry following.
Yeah.
And so kind of what I do for a living is talk to people in the industry. And I'm like, I keep hearing these repetitive things for them. They're struggling with things like, like alcoholism, and they professionally, they don't know how to succeed, and they have these problems physically, mentally in their lives. And I'm just like, why? It'd be kind of cool to create a platform for people in this industry to come and to share like advice and things how to improve. So that's like, I appreciate you coming on here and talking to me today, because it takes a lot of confidence to put yourself out there, and I think that with the late nights that we have in this industry, like it's very easy to just become a zombie and to just completely expend yourself to your job and to not take care of yourself on the back ends.
Yeah.
And I found that's like really important, is to grind, work hard, do your thing at work, make your money, but don't just like, so many times I see people just get off their shifts and they just nuke themselves. They just spend the big money on the bars and the food and the comfort and stuff. And it's like, I think it takes a lot of discipline at work and outside of your work life to have a successful, happy, peaceful, calm life, you know?
And I also want to just to that point that, calm and peace and aren't always what people correlate to success or to, balance. But in overall, it's like to create a sense of joy and a sense of like alignment in your authenticity. Like when you're outside, when you're on, not even outside of work, day to day in your work, because you may be spending 8 to 12 hours at that job, which is a lot of your day. How does it feel in your body? Like, how are you bringing in purpose and authenticity so that you're like enjoying what you're doing, so that it is part of the balance that you're creating for your life, that it isn't like I go to work and then I do other things to create the balance of the harm that the work creates. Like, how can you create wellness within your job? Yeah. How can your job be a part of your wellness story?
I think authenticity is really important. It's also really tricky. I think that because look, if you're a good bartender, you have to deal with people who think totally opposite opinions of you. You see the whole spectrum, right? So you can't always voice your opinion. We are kind of we are the ears. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. I think that makes a good bartender.
Yeah.
And I think that expression is challenging for people who constantly take in other people's problems. And you and I had coffee last week, and one thing that you said that I thought a lot about and stuck with me is like, we do like mirror each other in life. People mirror each other, whether it's in relationships, at coworkers, customer to coworkers. And I think that when you do spend your whole career working in bars, you kind of develop, two things can happen. You mirror hold on, let me just try to think about how I'm going to say this. Like, you can develop these mirroring aspects with some of your customers, and sometimes when you are that ear and you're listening, whether you are a legitimate therapist who works in an office or you're a bartender and you're hearing all these things from people, like, it kind of takes a toll on you. And I think that's why like lifers develop these, like, they're very, like, you can be very cutthroat and very like standoffish and like build up these walls, because when you do let down your guard and open yourself up to everybody, sometimes it's like it can be challenging.
Yes. And I think in our conversation last week, we touched on a couple of things. One is how we create boundaries for ourselves, and another is curiosity. And I think that boundaries aren't just like, no, I'm not going to talk about this. It's about, how do before I step onto the stage of my bartending, I'm going to tell myself, and maybe it's a visualization, maybe it's just like a little like, I got me, but it's a moment to say like, no matter what comes to me, I got me. I know who I am. I know where I stand, and I don't need to prove that to anybody.
I don't need the validation from other people, because people will try to make you feel shitty.
And yes, they will. And, and so it's that moment of like, I know that I'm safe in my body, and I know who I am when I walk in, and that I'm the same person when I walk out and with my money. And And then on the other side, the curiosity aspect is when people come in and they're laying out their shit for you and they're hammering you with their opinion, maybe to incite a reaction, or maybe just because they need to unload, whatever the reason may be. Yeah. It's like with that boundary in place, with that like buffer, the moat, or like instead of being in the storm of their stuff, that you're like in a step back in a safe home, looking out the window as they talk to you. So you've got that 1 degree of separation. And then you can say, what's up with this guy? Like, why, how did he get here? Like, what was his mom like? And start to humanize them and get curious about like, why, what's up with this guy?
Interesting. Well, that's interesting because like, I think there's the two ways to look. As a customer, like I don't really fucking care. You know what I mean? Like from the business perspective, it's like, dude, I don't care what bullshit. Like this is a transaction, but it's like you got to try to find the balance between transactional and having empathy. And I think that's kind of tough sometimes because it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think about this. I think sometimes you shouldn't say what happened to this person, because then sometimes you do feel that like empathy and it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, when from the business perspective side. And that's the thing, I guess, that's the thing we're kind of talking about. It's not like clear, cut and dry, but it's just like from a financial standpoint, like, dude, I don't care why you were so hammered to come in here. I don't care that like, yo, you want a beer? I'm going to give you the beer. Here you go. And it's like, you got to play with that sometimes.
Yeah. But I think more so thinking about that from how do I manage through a night of being, whether it's like being berated or just being in proximity to like to people with differing opinions and people with shitty attitudes. And it's like, doesn't need to be this like long drawn out, like, tell me. Right. It's just like a flip second of like, well, I hope that he has a cool dog at home. And then like, so that you can create peace for yourself. It's about you, not about like, I need to just like that moment so that you're not like, this fucking, you know.
Yeah. I've learned to just walk away a lot. Yeah. I just literally walk away. But you can only do that so much. Yeah. And it's tough, I think, sometimes when you just, for a living, you hear people's opinions who are constantly different than yours. Yeah. And it's it. But I got to remember that, like, I try to remind myself they're customers. That's why their people are here. You know, they're here to express themselves. And, like, I think, like, locking in on that mindset of just being the listener, it's like, it's kind of a skill, I feel like, sometimes. Because some people are just not good listeners. I've like, do you ever talk to somebody and they just like, you can tell by the way they look that like, they're like, this person does not give a fuck about what I'm talking about, right? Like you can see it in their face sometimes, but
have you ever looked at, I have a friend, I can actively see him dissociate. Yeah. Like I'm like looking at him and you see the moment where his mind just goes, and I don't care. And it's not even, I don't think it's even that. It's like, cause I've seen him do it with some of like, we're some of his closest friends, but I see him and he's just like, it's just like I watch his entire like consciousness go to like zoop.
Okay, I have a lot of questions for you. I guess like we kind of talked about the service elements in the hospitality industry, and I think that like what does that mean to you? Like to be in service to people and sort of like, I know that we go to work to make money and things like that, but like from an actual perspective of like what the product that we give, like how do you feel about that?
Can you
I guess say
more.
That was kind of a bad question.
No, it's not a bad question. I just want to say more about what you are looking for.
Like like in terms of like why people, I guess like I guess I try to think of like when people come through the door, like what am I providing for them? Like how do I make these people's times that they spend at the business better, you know? Because that's how I think about it. Some people just come in and they just want to sit and have a drink, but like how do I guess the service is about enjoying your time and like like how do I do that as a bartender? I think like the other day I was joking around, I work at a neighborhood spot, and I was joking around with one of my really good regulars about how I'm going to try just flair bartending. And I was just like the last place you'd ever go for that is that last place you ever go for flair bartending is still Public House. So I got the glass of Fernet, I'm pouring it over my elbow. I'm like kind of trying to pour a shot. And it's like, I couldn't be, and I just think like my thing is like, I try to be goofy and silly with people. And I think like that's it. When you can kind of create that silliness, it opens other people up. And when you embarrass yourself a little bit, it's like, comforting. So that's always been my approach to how I do my job. But like, what about you? Like, how do you express yourself at work? Do you have like a little thing you do? Not like little thing, but like, I guess your energy, like, I don't know. Can you talk about your style at all?
My vibe?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm kind of, I am myself all the time, and there are certainly like various roles I have to play. Sure. Like when I'm like Dr. Carrie, different. I'm not like, but like I am both very, very silly and very, very passionate about making people feel seen. And in the service, and so I'm in service both in like food service and like bar service, as well as like in service to people as I guide them to their health. And I'm always interested in guiding people to the most fulfilled version of themselves, whatever that it means for them, whether that's like, I'm looking for joy, or like, I'm looking for escapism when they walk in the door to like an establishment that you're serving food or beverage to. And you get it. Like you get a read on people where they're like, is it a couple walking in? They just want to do their thing. Like maybe I'll tell a little joke or like put a little thing in there that they can talk amongst themselves. And I'm like helping them on their weird first date vibe. Yeah. Or is it a solo person, but they're on their phone or they're reading a book and they don't want to be bothered, and it's like, you can touch on it a little bit and get the feel for it. It's just, we cultivate this skill. Like you said before, we do this for so long that we're so good at reading people and picking up on that, like minutia, like the little energetics that say like, I need a friend, or like, I don't want your fucking friendship. Like you pick up on that. And it's like, is this an appropriate time to like look them straight in the eyes and go, hey, you doing okay? Or to say like make a joke, crack a joke, or like point out something really weird behind the bar, or like tell them something funny that happened in your week to sort of like break the ice. Like you get a read on that. And I think that my service style is always like, yeah, I'm here in service to help you feel the most fulfilled I can. Yeah,
one little thing. I always sometimes I let people get like a drink in them before I start like trying to like talk to them and get to know them, because it lets like they loosen up. Then now I know they're loosen up. It makes me loosen up, and we kind of like build rapport from there. But it's I'm always just trying new things. I'm not really I feel like a lot of times I make a fool out of myself and like that, but not like super bad, but just like, I think like the ability to constantly try like to new things and to put yourself out there with people is like how you develop those skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do read people. Like that's one thing I do every person who walks in the door, because of the location. So we're downtown right outside of the gas lamp, and it's a little dicey sometimes. There's a lot of mental health issues, people that are walking by, homeless people and things like that. And so like from like a safety perspective, I'm like, I read up and down every person. You could tell by the way people walk, what their energy is. Like
tell me about that.
If you are somebody who walks like super aggressively into a bar, like the people who the comforting people walk in with their shoulders back, they walk slowly and they look around the bar, and I'm like, okay, this is a normal customer. And the people who walk in late on a Friday night, like jacked up, running right to the back, I'm like, these are the people who cause the most problems. I found that.
There's one other place that I worked at in Vegas, which I worked at the same time, which was called Moondoggies.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I feel like there's like a Moondoggies here, or like it's based on it was really random. So Moondoggies was a gaming bar, like shitty, amazing 24-hour gaming bar in Vegas. But it had like it had like a really bad like surfers painted on the like the refrigerators were like convenience store refrigerators. But anyways, it was very much like I just cashed my social security check and I brought my money here to put it in the machine. And you know, a good bartender there is like, it's like 7 a.m. and like I'm chatting with you. And maybe I'm like really good at gauging like how many beers should John have before 9 a.m. or like, you know, or maybe I'm, you know, whatever it is, I'm leaning in just enough. It's like the ability to read the room, you know.
Yo,
and
Vegas is wild.
Vegas is wild. Well, the craziest
It's such
thing,
a different culture there.
the craziest thing about that job is I'd work like a long shift at Atomic and I'm making cocktails, and we, you know, we did have a cocktail program. We had the biggest and best craft beer program in Vegas for many years. Rose was the manager, and she was, you know, she was in charge of like some big beer fests, and she was incredible at bringing in no one was putting sours on at the time. Like our kegs would go bad because everyone was like a sour. But I would work a long shift doing like, you know, cocktail stuff, and then, you know, make like decent money, and then I'd go to Moondoggies again. I'm like popping buds and making like 7 and 7s and be like, damn, you know, I'm working from like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. until like, you know, noon or 1 or 2 or whatever it is, and be like, I hope I did okay. And then you look at your money, you're like, how did I make my rent?
No, seriously, like those are the spots where you clean up.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's bars out here that I know that are the 6 a.m. to like noon or 1 shift. And it's like, yo, you can do well at that. You wouldn't, for those who aren't in the industry, I guess you don't really get it, but I know, dude.
Golden handcuffs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think the local spots are a really good place to make good money. People.
Yeah, I love them most because you have the most connectivity there.
That's where, you can build a rapport with people and sort of, and like Vegas is so, I'm trying to like just picture myself there. Like culturally, you bartended in New York City. It's the people there are very different than Southern California. Mm-hmm. And I guess the like just with the gambling aspects and just, I don't know. I think it'd be I like that. I like learning about culture and people, and like, I don't know. I feel like I grow and it makes me more like wiser in life. You know, if you're somebody who kind of stays if you grow up in the same town and you live there your whole life and you have the same job, it's like, yeah, that's, you know, you might have a family and security and peace and all that stuff, because I don't have much of those, but I think there is an aspect of like curiosity to life, going out, taking risks and adventures and traveling and learning about people and things. And that's what our industry is really cool for, is it gives you the ability to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think one of the things that I've really thought about a lot is because of our proximity to the public, you know, and dependent upon where you work, you get either a more narrow or more broad exposure to a range of people, right? Mm-hmm. You like, whether it's like, oh, these cocktails are really expensive, so you might only see like a snapshot of like the type of people who can afford this, or if you're at a spot where like anyone can buy a $2 PBR. But we operate at like, we learn things in hyperspeed. Our ability to like understand human nature and to try out things that we're like, tools that we're taking on and learning, and to try them out as we interface with other people happens at an exponentially faster rate than most people, because, you know, maybe they see the same 5 to 10 people in their week, you know, and we're like,
we get this constant change.
Yes, constant change, constantly, you know, maybe that we're tested, or maybe we're testing ourselves. And yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool opportunity to grow if you have the mindset to utilize it in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, what do we do with that? You know, what do you do with that skill? And I guess that's where I'm at, is I'm trying to take what I've done working in restaurants. I'm 33, and it's
which one is it?
I'm 33. Well, I'm turning 34 soon, but yeah. I know. I'm already like in my head. I'm like, dude, I know. I'm getting so older, and like this was I wanted to build this product. Like this is what I want to do with my life. And as you get older and you realize how much time you procrastinated by not doing it, and then you get into this and you realize how hard it is and how much time and effort it takes to do it by yourself, and you start to have these doubts in my head. I'm just like, oh my gosh, was this the right idea? I don't have a network, and like I'm trying to build a platform around networking, and you're like, was I an idiot this whole time? And I guess I keep trying to just tell myself to keep going, keep figuring it out, keep learning this process, because I enjoy this. Like, are you a podcast listener?
I am.
Who you listen to these days?
I listen to. I am a big Huberman Lab.
Yo, me too. I love him.
People have mixed feelings, but I will say Huberman, baby, for the love of God, like 3 hours, honey, is a lot.
Oh no, I like that. I like those.
You do?
Yeah.
I mean, I do break them up.
I don't listen to the whole things, but like I'll listen to clips of them and stuff. Joe Rogan's a big one. He does like a lot of like 3-hour podcasts. But I think the cool thing about this platform is, anybody can do this, and it gives you a voice.
Yeah,
it's like you have the ability, and with social media you can do that too. But like, I was somebody who has spent a lot of time by myself, and I think that like having podcasts and even audiobooks to listen to creates I learn a lot, whether it's comedy podcasts or Huberman or sports or news or whatever it is. So I did that. I was an audience member for so long, and now I was like, dude, I kind of want to go on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And I want to create that product and like be the producer as opposed to just the consumer, you know? And it's like kind of the same thing with bars and restaurants. Like I like being on the selling and producing side, because you're still at the bar, you're still having fun, but you're the one, you're arguably
directing.
You're making money.
Yeah. I mean, and you get to sort of like direct the, push things in a direction that piques your own or satisfies your curiosity. You get to ask the questions and, really shape something to both your benefit or your guest benefit, whether it's podcast guest or, service guest, etc. But you can sort of like shape things. You're
like cultivating the conversation, And I think that like such a cool thing about restaurants is that for me is the interior design. I love like the look of like when you walk into a place, you can tell like, oh wow, they put a lot of effort into this. Oh, the lighting is like this. This is how it feels when you go in.
Okay,
like, I pay attention to those things.
I'm gonna. Okay, I gotta stop. You're an East Coaster. You're like New Yorker. When I moved to Southern California, let me tell you, what really grinds my gears is fucking lighting.
Really?
It is so bright in so many restaurants here and like establishments. I don't like, it was something that really irked me initially.
You noticed that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I'm like,
maybe, you know what? Maybe you're coming from like the New York and Vegas, like low light dive bars.
Yeah, like romance.
Yeah.
We're trying to create a vibe here. And I can't tell you how many places where it's like, I'm not trying to have a coastal California moment at like 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's a good answer to what you would change about the industry. Lighting. People need to figure out lighting.
Sure. Yeah, I think like environment.
It matters.
Oh yeah.
It matters a
100%. Like, we're creatures. We have senses for a reason, and our senses really have a huge effect on our mood and our vibe. Like what music is playing, like, in the place, how loud is it? Like, do anyone who's a bartender, like you want to like make it feel like a party, you're going to put on the right tunes at the right volume to have people like stick around. Like I've worked at a few establishments with either a jukebox or a playlist that we didn't have control over.
Oh, that's the worst.
Lord have mercy.
Is the fucking worst.
Yeah, where you're like, bro,
you gotta have control of the music.
How many times like I've been like, this song is giving one horse saloon, like this is the last night of my existence, fare thee well vibes, this song feels like the song I should leave on, like I should leave to.
I could never work at a karaoke bar.
No.
I'd fucking kill myself.
I do love karaoke, but I do see your point.
There's a couple bars that we go to. They do karaoke a couple nights a week, and I'll like forget, and I'll walk in, and I'll just, it's
where?
Like,
Where do you
like,
go?
I don't even want to say it,
Okay, fair.
but like it's like girls who are 26 who are blacked out drunk, and there's like a guy, her boyfriend is like filming her in a music video, like, and I'm getting all the angles, and I'm just like, dude, get me out of this bar. No, but I think that it's the lighting, the layout of the bar is really important. There's so many different aspects to the hospitality industry and bars and restaurants, and I think that like, I had this conversation with one of my regulars because at Stout Public House, a lot of bars, there's so many different light switches, right? It's not just like one up and one down. We have like 12 different levers and knobs. And so to try to set which are like different lighting systems throughout the restaurant, and to try to find that right, like, algorithm, like the right settings for each one, it's like fun. I'm like, I'll turn this one down a little bit, let me pull up the main lights here, the bar lighting behind, and I remember I had this conversation with my regulars who's a veteran in this industry. I was like, oh dude, I've worked here for 2 years and I just now found out how to set the lighting in this bar. And me opening up to him and talking to him about the creative aspects of the ambiance started this like business conversation where we got talking about starting your own restaurant, what it costs to run these restaurants, like what I'm doing. And it's like sometimes just opening up to yourself and the creativity that's going through your mind to people creates dialogue and relationships and stuff. And
that is what relationship is. It's relating the stuff that's in your mind and how they relate to what you're expressing, and how vulnerable do you want to be? How vulnerable can you get in the conversation? It's like someone, you might not think of like lighting as a vulnerability thing, right? But like you being like, I've worked here for 2 years and I've only now gotten my lighting scheme to like vibe. And, someone might think like, what? I'm such an idiot. Why would I tell someone that? But like, it opened up this like funny little conversation.
Yeah, expressing yourself is good. I think it's good to just let things out and be silly and dumb and stuff like that.
I'd be doing it. I don't know how to not.
Yo, I have a question. Do you have any questions for me or anything like that? Like, what do you? I know I've been kind of putting you on the spot for a while. Like,
I would say like, do you feel like, did this podcast, what happened right before this to really like jumpstart your intention to like sink your teeth into this?
That's a good question. I think this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I used to do it. I think the consistency thing has always been really challenging because I guess like for me doing a solo podcast, just talking to a microphone, a camera by myself in a room is like incredibly challenging.
Sure.
And I think people do it. Like professionals and really talented people do it. And I'm starting to now get to a point where like I do these self-reflection videos and I'm able to curate a conversation by myself. But I think that like finding other people who want to come on here and express themselves artistically has been very challenging for me.
Sure.
Maybe it's because of my circles. Maybe it's because of who I am. But I don't know. I just, like I said earlier, I've always connected with this type of media and content form, and I was never musically talented, or acting or any of that stuff, but I've always kind of connected with these podcasters because I don't know, I've listened to like Barstool. I was a big fan of them growing up. They were comedy sports, the guys from Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I thought that like with my skills of with my people skills, that this is something that I could do. And I think that like to build your own product takes so much volume and time. I think that, there's that Kill Tony Hinchcliffe guy who he does Kill Tony. He did over 700 episodes before he got the Netflix deal. I mean, that's volume. I'm on episode 9, and it's like, if whatever it is you want to do, like whatever product, whether it's starting a small business, whether it's a restaurant, bar, actress, whatever it is, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, it takes, you really have to commit to it, and you have to work through a lot of trial and error. And
absolutely. I would say to that, like, that it's not just, trial and error. And that can, sometimes it's really hard to take a step back and understand, like, from a perspective when you're in it, that it is a trial and error process, because what it feels like is failure, or like or that imposter thing of like, gosh, it didn't come out like I've listened to, 1,000 podcasts and it didn't sound like that podcast that I really love. And like, what am I doing? Like, this is never going to be that polished product and that I want it to be, but to know that, oh gosh, this is just this like fun exploratory phase where I get to like grow and take this weird dirt covered rock that I found and like polish it and keep polishing it. And holy crap, now I have this like really beautiful thing. And, but yeah, in the moment, it just feels like failures.
It's like constant failure.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think that's why this platform is a little bit about growth.
Yeah.
Because like, as long as you're moving forward and trying to grow and trying to adapt and change and be better, then I think you're moving in the right direction.
Totally. I want to bring in something that has been top of mind and I definitely wanted to like touch on in our conversation, is the improv stuff and how being involved in improv again. I was involved as a kid and then I got re-involved about 1.5 years ago. How doing improv has really helped my brain more quickly shift into celebrating failures, celebrating mistakes. And that's like quotation failures, quotation mistakes. It's like, there is such a vibe of everyone being like, hell yeah. Like, again, I'll just use John, just like said the wrong thing in this game where like we're supposed to go in this order. And we just all like lean in and like do a silly celebratory thing. And then, that you build on that as you learn more and more about improv, of just like, you're just out there to try stuff and to like feel what it feels like to try stuff and to see the people around you as other people trying stuff and how to like give them like support around their vision. And so that we're all just in this cool space of like, wow, look at all the stuff we're trying. And there's no failure. It's just celebrated mistakes and people trying stuff and being vulnerable and putting themselves out there. And it just becomes this like fun story of development. And there's just levels. It's never failure. It's like levels of exploration.
Yeah. And look at you. You're coming out here today and trying to help me with this thing. It's the same concept. So cheers. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Yeah, I have another thing to say about, I touched on this in like a story, but like a very obvious example of that like failure mind is like, I was a dance major for years, and I remember when I moved to New York, I was taking classes from a friend of mine, this guy, Jonathan Lee, and it was like a beginner intermediate, like hip hop class. And my first couple times in his class, like the choreography was so fast. And I just had this like gutted feeling of just like, I'm a fucking idiot. I'm going to like fake an injury and walk out of here because I feel so dumb.
Yeah. You just want to quit. Yeah.
Just like tears welling in my eyes, just like, I feel so stupid. And, I stuck with him and like took class from him weekly for years and ended up being like the person who's like videoed for the, whatever, for the piece of choreography. That's growth. Cool. So haven't danced in years in that capacity. And my friend Ginger took me to a dance class by our friend Jess, who is incredible, and it's a modern dance class. It's called Untitled Movement, and it's a lot of strength and mobility and stability like training. So it's kind of like an exercise class for some of it, and then at the end there's choreography. And this was last Friday, and I was so far from getting that choreography that I could like for a split second feel that version of me from many moons ago in New York who was just like, I'm gonna fake an injury and see myself out. And I immediately switched into improv brain, and my brain said, wow, I really love that I'm here and I'm trying this. And I'm not going to focus on this choreography and like nailing it, because that's not gonna happen. What I'm gonna focus on is like, which part of this choreography feels really good in my body, or which piece do I want to like really just like nail this one shape, or you know, whatever it is. And I just leaned into that and was like, I'm so stoked that I'm just like here and I have a body and I'm moving it, and I'm like the only person who's like, I'm just like so obviously not at the level of some of the other people. Now, mind you, some people walked out before the choreography even started because they were like, yeah, no, we know. So I too was just like, look at me trying the thing. And it really was, I could really tell it was improv brain that like helped me get from point A to B. It was so obvious to me.
It's like, yo, I just think if we are in that state of just constantly trying things, like with that comes with like failure.
Yes.
And it's like, but like, as long as like, and that kind of sucks for a lot of people who have never found success. Like I had success in athletics growing up. I was a terrible student, but like, so I kind of have a little bit of that taste, but I do like talk to a lot of people who have never had success and they don't make much money and they're not good looking people. And it's like, I guess to try, I think improv is really cool. I think like listening to you talk about this makes me want to try it and get into it. I
Yes.
do. No, I seriously do. Like,
oh my God. Yes.
because like, I think
yes.
like I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. I don't think I could do right now today. I think I'd be fucking brutal. Like the ability to like write these clever punchlines and jokes are
it's such a different brain.
Okay.
It is literally like, I really think it's like night and day difference. I mean, I think that improv could be closer to like sketch comedy than stand up. And because it's like, it's collaborative, it often brings in some absurdity like in that thing. And here's there are so many gifts of improv in terms of what you just spoke to, of like, you don't have to memorize anything.
Okay.
And like, it's a collaboration, and all you have to do is be willing to collaborate.
Yeah.
So it's not all on you. So if you have a bum audience and people are like, I ain't clapping, you're not like, well, I'm taking that home with me and I'm going to go fester in my bed about how I was such a lack of success. Like, you have a team there with you who were on the same journey, and there's a lot of cringy improv. Let's just be clear. Like it is.
But you get comfortable with that cringe probably, right? No, never. Not really.
Well, if you're a perfectionist like myself, I mean, I'm always like, how can I make it better? How can I make it better? Which for sure is part of it. And like, I have to walk a line of like, not self-flagellating, like trying not to leave a set, a jam, or a class being like, wow, I really sucked. Or like, it's more like, okay, cool. Like, what are the few things that I could bring in next time? Like more awareness of like my partner, more small gifts, or like more playfulness, or whatever it is, instead of doing the like just ruminating on it. And I had a friend who gave me a gift of like, you got to burn it. Just burn it. You got to burn it. Like you can never repeat it. It's not like I'm going to go home and work on my lines. It's improv. So you just got to burn it.
Yeah.
You're like, take what you can. Know that you're continuously working on things.
Have a short memory.
Yeah. But it has such an incredible handshake to the service industry. Huh. And I would say that is because there's the classic like improv yes and so you have someone in front of you, a guest, and whatever they bring to your table, your bar, you just sort of flow with it. And it's just finding this flow of like and just it kind of helps shift any potential conflict, because for the most part in improv, like there are lots of types of conflict you don't want. Like you can have conflict in improv, but there are ways to make it like funny and make it flow. And so, yeah, there's just this handshake of like, how can I greet like what someone's bringing to me with like openness and like, and validate their reality, but also like kind of help move and shape it into this other place potentially. There's a really like a beginner's exercise that is one of my favorite, that's just called Let's Take a Walk in the Park. And it can start just like that. Like, hey, let's take a walk in the park. And the next person, and you could play it with 2 people or 20 people. The next person says, yeah. And on the way to the park, let's stop and pet those dogs that are always outside.
And then I would go.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, and the dogs are covered in mud.
Yeah. And we can do the owner a favor and rinse them off.
And the dogs need to be fed.
Yes. And so on our way to, we know that we'll grab some of that kibble that we know that they like.
And we got to stay away from my friend's house because my friend's Michael Vick.
I don't know that. Yeah, we'll stay away from that house. We're going to make a big arching, like, around that house, and we'll definitely avoid Michael's house. But like you could go, this game is so fun because you can end up in the wildest, most absurd realities, and it could go on forever.
Do you know who Michael Vick is?
No,
Okay.
Wow, it just ousted me.
Michael Vick is he's a former NFL quarterback.
Why would I know, Taylor? Why would I know
hold
that?
On. Because there's more.
Okay.
Michael Vick is a quarterback who was sent to prison for dogfighting. So I was being facetious and joking
wow,
about
look at you
that.
with your absurd knowledge. I love it. Yeah, we're definitely avoiding his house.
Avoiding Michael Vick's house. So I'm a big animal lover. I have 2 dogs.
Good.
It sucks because I'm also like a huge Michael Vick fan. That was a tough one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's scumbag. Anyways, he's rehabilitated. He went to prison. He paid his time. Not condoning any of those things. That's tough, yo. When like somebody like you like look up to in the professional world or the sports world or acting world does like things like that. And, like it's
there's
like
lots of that.
It's like, you got to respect the art, but not the artist sometimes.
It's so hard,
That's
especially because in the way that Western society is, we quantify, and like art is often a product that we are consuming, and like we are like paying into the system of, whether it's like you're paying into that NFL salary or you're buying someone's music or watching their films. It's like it's like enjoying the art means like usually like paying into it somehow, which then means like we're like okaying their behavior in some way.
I know it's
up.
tough.
So you're just like, I can't have that art anymore. Like,
no.
Yeah,
I'm a big believer of you can separate the art and the artist. Like,
Yeah.
Kanye West is my favorite rapper of all time. I'll always listen to Kanye West. And I know he's kind of said some not great things over the years, but I will listen to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy until the day I die. I do not care.
We gonna have to disagree on this, baby. That's okay. But yeah, I mean, I think like that's a hard one for me. I just found out that the director of The Fifth Element married, was like dating the 15-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
He was like 38, and I'm like, fuck, like I love that movie so much.
How about, speaking of that, the French president? Have you heard about this?
No.
He's he is.
Oh,
it's the other way. He is like in his 50s or something now. But his wife is like 25 years older than him. And they met when she was in her 30s and he was like 15. Isn't that kind of weird?
Yes,
and she was
weird.
like the nanny, or she worked with the family somehow. And then she was brought in with the family, and then they grew up and got married. He was a 15-year-old boy.
Dude, okay.
That's
also,
so strange.
This is really funny. Not funny at all. For some reason, like some of those early like Lil Jon songs have been like, I've been like, yeah. That Usher and Lil Jon song like came on, and then I made a radio out of it. And the song that like I used to love, that's like Joel Santana and Chris Brown, and
that's right. He's big in did he? Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but wait, this song. This is on this specific subject. This song is like Chris Brown's like given his like sexy lyrics, and he's like he's like going on and on about like all the things he's gonna like do, and like he's like in the club and like watching the chicks, and like a lot of like sexual overtone, a lot of sexual overtone. And then he's like, I'm gonna be doing things that will have you saying, I can't believe he's 16. And I'm like, first of all, you're like going on and on about like all these sexual things you're doing, and then like clearly intimating that the person who's listening to this is like, whoa, this guy's 16, I'm still down, that's crazy. And then like Joel Santana, so you have like Chris Brown being like, and he's like got this like young man voice, and then Joel's just like, Santana, Joel's, yeah, and he's like, you sound like you're 38. Like, what are you doing collaborating with this 16-year-old on a track all about like having sex in the club?
Yeah.
I just have so many questions.
It is. It's, you know what? I think it's me too. One of my questions is like, how do you release that? It's one thing to get on a track and say it, but that's got to go through so many steps and like okays and production, like all this stuff to be like, yep, this is what we want to put out, talking about younger girls like that.
The engineer's just like, hey, Chris, can we take that like 16? Like, get the run right on that. And they're like, yep, sounds awesome. Yes, there are so many people, the labels, it's wild.
Like just the whole, the R. Kelly stuff too. Like how many people knew about these things going on, and with all this P. Diddy stuff, and like,
dude,
it makes you wonder what's really going on out there with politics and Hollywood and the music industry and these big Bill Gates and stuff like that. Like if 10 years ago when I was in my early 20s, if you told me stuff, I'd have said there's no way those things are happening, but they are, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's a weird handshake with like success and power and
like weird kinky sex and stuff.
Well, no, I think it's like
fuck?
people who are like audacious and delulu enough to like act out of pocket. Firstly, like in order to rise to certain levels of success, I do think that like you have to have some sort of like gumption. Like you gotta like really be believing in yourself more than the average person, right? Which is a little diluted to some extent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so I think that there is like a touch of that across the board, anyone in power and anyone in fame and success. There's just a touch of like, I have to believe in myself, even at, like almost to a fault, because I just have to in order to get the train moving. And then with that, like you get various levels of like, how deluded are you? And then there's a whole system of like, once you get this power, I can do no wrong. And
God-like the way they think. Yep.
And now we have more and more surveillance, like in regard to like social media and ways to oust people,
locations of phones, all that stuff.
We can read your emails and things like that. Whereas like, in times before, there wasn't that sort of like visibility of people's wrongdoings.
Yeah, I think, we work in the like Southern California, bars, restaurants. You see these people come in. There's a lot of like, people do a lot of drugs in this industry. People are out partying in the gas lamp, doing cocaine and ecstasy and stuff like that. And like, I think a lot of those big time celebrities, they get to a point of they've partied so much, they've banged all the women and the guys, they've had so much, it's like they get bored and they go like, it's kind of fucking crazy. Like they've partied so hard, they go, the only thing that like drives their like brain is to do something so out of pocket, like you said. It's like, dude, I haven't even had close to enough sex in my life to like try that kind of crazy, like even the crazy sex, not even the unethical sex, just like I can't understand the BDSM and stuff. I guess if that's for you, that's fine, but like I met a girl at Aero Club who does that for a profession, and she was just telling me about it, and I'm just like, yo, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do perform in the kink world, so you're parking.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
what do you do? Let's talk about it. What kind of stuff do you do? Not that I say it's bad, but I'm interested.
Yeah. I mean, so I work with a friend, Gisela Thorne, and who's a femdom, and we are often booked to do like creative kink scenes. So we've opened for like huge acts, like doing shows like Music Box, and the work that I do with her is incorporating elements of kink, whether that's like wax play and like impact, like paddling, or your classic like whips or whatever it is that in the kink scene that we're portraying. And then what I really love is to like paint a story and do it in a really artful way. So we had a really cool scene that was a Renaissance based, and we led it through this whole like a story arc of like I was a guest at her home and she was like treating her servant poorly. And then there was like, she got upset at me. And then there's like paddling me with the breadboard. And then like all these different ways of like incorporating shibari, because she's a really great rope tire, and like all these different aspects. And then it culminates at the end where there's this like beautiful scene where I'm wearing a candelabra ball gag, and it's like beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like on a it's just really gorgeous, like both art, performance art, and elements of
I did
Kings.
not know this.
Yeah, here
That's
we are
really cool.
learning about
That's
each
really
other.
cool. Yeah, that's so.
But I want to circle back to the original conversation, that I think that it's not just like I'm bored and I need to do these. I think that it's like, I think that the people who are creating harm or are doing things that are like, you know, there's one thing to be engaged in consensual, you know, behaviors, you know, whatever gets you off, like there's varying levels of that. But I think that some of these people have nervous systems that are dysregulated, and what they're doing actually is creating scenarios in which to peak those stress hormones,
neurotransmitters.
Yeah,
and
they're
stuff.
like
Yeah.
they're like, the drugs aren't doing it anymore. I
Yeah.
want to do something so fucked up that my stress, cortisol levels, my adrenaline peak so that I get high.
Yeah, I
think
agree.
that
I believe. I
that's-
totally agree with that.
It's really
I look
sad.
for other things to do.
You know what I
in my
mean?
life, like,
We're looking for calm and joy and peace here.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I'm
know.
like, how can I get more zen? I'm really addicted to that zen shit. Let's go.
but like, yo, there are people, and that's their lives, and I'm not here to judge. But
Yeah.
yo, so I okay, very interesting that you're coming from that world and stuff like that. I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
I just have other, like, I don't know. I think that like, I'm not one of those people, and I don't judge people, but
Well, I think like
it's been really weird coming out like California. There's a lot of people who are into that stuff. out
Well,
here, too.
I want to like, we don't need to get too deep into
we
this.
can
but,
get
like,
as deep as you want.
But like
Let's do it.
my thing is like, so I do these performances, and I think it would be easy for, you know, before I wiped my Instagram and am like professional lady now, I had a lot of photo shoots of my work throughout my years and years and years in the entertainment industry. And that, like, as a female musician, like, you know, you're selling sex. We've always been selling sex. And so that was a huge part of that. And so then there's like various levels of that. So I feel like someone could have a totally misconstrued like concept of who I am. And I think that happens to a lot of women in general, but it's like, because you're like, I want you to think I'm sexy, but also I want you to think of me as a person who could be the mother of your children. Like, and there's a really weird balancing act of like, of how to be yourself and be understood. And I don't know. It's a strange,
It's a fine line.
it's a really fine
Yeah.
line. And also, like, I'm not day to day, like, gotta find someone to whip me. Like, or like, I hope this, you know, like, I have had a lot of very like normal, I love, my favorite kind of like interaction is the type that's like present, we're mutually curious, and it's about building on very real chemistry in the moment. And it's not about forcing a type of dynamic. It's about really paying attention to what exactly is happening. And that's like anything, that's relationship, that's sex, that's friendship, that's like, you know, you can't create those dynamics.
Yeah, I think
exist.
like, I can't tell people how they should live their lives or how they should think or act sexually or all those things. I just know that like I have my personal preferences, and it's interesting. We were talking about selling sex. The industry sells sex. I mean, like the music industry, the movie industry, you know, bars and restaurants. You go to the clubs, you see the girls outside with the barely covering clothing on, pulling guys in. I mean, there are places across the border that are like the legit, you know, brothels, and you can find that. I mean, what do you think about like this new age of women who are going to OnlyFans and selling themselves online and making 7 figures and things like that? Like, do you think that's like a good thing? Do you think it's like we shouldn't be promoting that to women? Like, cause like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that sex work is work. I have a lot of sex worker friends, and that looks like many different things. Again, it could be people filming, filming pornography, people, OnlyFans, like women, people who are doing more interpersonal. There are many, like, I think that people have maybe an old school version of what like sex work looks like and what it is. And I know that that's come up politically recently of like really, making pornography illegal. I don't know if you've seen that.
Whoa.
Yeah, literally. Yep. It's a
Let's
real
chill
thing.
with that, bro.
It's a real thing. And
No, I'm just kidding.
so I'm not kidding. It's like when you think about, there are all these like, we laughingly talk about like the incels of the world, like, and how it's these quote incels who, with their pent up frustration and their lack of belongingness and their lack of acceptance, are going on to create harm in the world. And, and if there is someone for whom, like, from maybe the safety of their own space, creating content or engaging with someone via the World Wide Web, and they're texting back and forth, and, they're able to create some sort of like relationship, that's a service industry right there. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, again, like any profession and anything we do, in order to do it healthfully, we have to check in with our own boundaries, our own mental health, and our own authenticity. Like I can't say what someone can like healthfully handle. Like my nervous system and, my purpose in life is different than yours, and it's different from anyone else's. So if they're creating community, if they're creating joy, if they're helping someone create like self-acceptance, if they're helping to create healthful pleasure,
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I love that. And get your coin, baby. Get your coin.
So I guess that's where my mind goes to. Like, if I had a daughter, I would not feel comfortable promoting her to do OnlyFans. I don't think that is good for, this is my opinion, I don't think it's good for young women to be aspiring to the ease of selling themselves online. I think that does more harm than good.
I think that my concern always for women, always, no matter what level, no matter what, is because of the way our modern society has viewed women. It is tell me what you most value about yourself, and I don't want it to have anything to do with your physicality. Where is your value outside of the physicality? Because it's so hard there's pretty privilege, right? And, people really get swept up into that. And then it creates this really horrible thing as we age. As like women, we have such a hard time aging.
Absolutely.
Like I'm 40. Like that was hard for me, especially again, coming from an entertainment industry, of just like, first of all, like turning 40. Well, I'm like, well, I may as well just tuck myself into my casket, because that's the end for me. And just feeling like the intensity around like keeping up your youth, keeping up your visage, your physicality. And there's such pressure, and it's so detrimental to mental health. And so I just worry in any profession where women find their value outside of their physical presence. Truly. I mean, it seems so, maybe it seems so like obvious, or such a simple statement, but it really is. Like, I remember walking through a grocery store with my mom when I was in my 20s, and and I was in New York at the time, and I dressed really like Gotham pinup, like always had my hair in like a Veronica Lake, like dark look, and like always had a red lip on. And these like little girls would always like look at me and be like, it's Snow White. Like they were just, I looked like a princess to them, or people would say like, you're so beautiful. And my mom would be like, she's really smart too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, right? Like don't, so do you think that's detrimental to women? Is that what you're saying? That like we shouldn't focus on the image, or are you leaning into that? I'm just trying to like.
No, I think that it is, I think both things. I think that, I do think that it is part of our job to be curious about what makes someone a wonderful asset to our lives, and how they show up, and really putting value in like the way that they're showing up as a human, like internally, like, and engaging with the world, instead of being like, oh, like your hair looks nice, and like having those authentic conversations, as well as I think it's really important as individuals. It's one thing to like feel good about yourself and, have great hygiene and like express yourself physically in a way that makes you feel empowered, but really checking in with like, where does my value come in?
Where do you find value in yourself?
Yeah.
That's like a really big thing.
Totally.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, for women, it comes faster than men in terms of aging in this industry and things like that. But, and that's, I guess, like, I think about those things. Like, what would you like if you could tell your 20-year-old self something about this industry? If you could go back to when you were 20, like, what do you think? What either if you could change it, or if you could give yourself a heads up, like maybe do something differently, would you tell that woman anything?
I don't know. I think it would. I think I'm really lucky that I grew up incredibly ugly.
Do you feel that way?
Oh,
Why
my
do you
God.
feel that way?
Oh, I should show you.
I don't think you're ugly. I
No,
don't
no,
think
no,
anyone's
no,
gonna
no,
watch
no,
this
no,
and
no,
think
no,
you're
no.
ugly.
No. That's not. I was not a good-looking kid or adolescent. I was like very chubby, like overweight, spiky hair, like very like self-expressed. And because I grew up as like not like a good looking, like I was never going to be like popular kid, I was one of those that like cultivated a huge personality. And that's like where all that, and I had to cultivate value in other places in my life. So I'm lucky that I got that. And then the trajectory of my life, I went into like this like hyper femme state of cultivating more of like an appearance and that. But I think we would say probably just the same things that we're saying in this conversation now, of just like, I love that you're finding expression in your physicality. Make sure you're continuing to cultivate the inner world that you deem authentic and purposeful in the world. And I just think it would be the same message.
Huh.
Yeah.
I guess like I'm obviously a guy, so I think what were the things we're talking about right now, like I do think our culture is so pushes women to focus on their physicality.
Yeah.
And I don't think I wish we could, as men and women, try to like point women in a different direction. I don't know. I think that's what I see is like, how can we like,
I will say that I see a ton of like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the industry for women these days in regard to like career bartending and, like availability to roles and like, being reps and etc. But I see so many like female only cocktail competitions or organizations, and like a ton of women winning cocktail competitions, that are both both sexes, and like gaining more and more of a footing, not just a footing, but like perpetuating the footing that has been there, that like there's some incredible talent, and it being more and more normalized that we see females as head bartenders and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So. I've worked with some, I've made the argument on other podcasts, like some of the best women that I've worked with in this industry are not the ones who are like are like beautiful by the eyes. They're the ones who maybe were a little overweight growing up or didn't have those beautiful physical features. And like, I have had my best experience in this industry working with those women because, like you said, they did have to develop these skills and people skills and work ethic and hustle. And I'm not trying to make the argument that like attractive women don't have those.
Well, also, I think like in that moment of curiosity, can you imagine what it would be like if you're just like so if you're like super hot, like just and like your whole life,
the whole world is different than from those other people. And the way everybody interacts with
because
you.
they're like, and it's so much more like it's just like, this is just a transaction. No one really wants to know me. No one wants to know me. No one is interested in who I am underneath this. So I'm never going to go deeper because fuck everybody.
That's really interesting.
Like, you know, that's like, that's their own shit to carry.
And everybody has their own world and their experience, your experience in your world. It's so different per person. That's what I've learned doing this podcast is interviewing all these people. It's everybody sees the world differently.
Oh yeah.
So like, that's like, I guess I'm talking to the people who are the not naturally beautiful women in this industry and trying to educate them and guide and like, be like, give them a voice and, you know, be like, hey, how can you grow in this industry? Because we all know it's Southern California. We know the beautiful women who don't sometimes. There are the beautiful women who don't lack the skills. And it's like, what do you do when you're not one of those people? Because some of them do, you know, so.
Well, I think that we find that, oftentimes those like really beautiful women are working those jobs where they're like, the high volume, like club bartender, or, like they're in those spaces where like, they want the model like back there or whatever. And so like just in life, when, you don't have your physicality to rest on, you develop other skills. It's kind of the same thing in regard to like, what skills are going to take you to the next level? Like what skills are going to help like open up a world for you and cultivating those things. But yeah, I don't know. We all have our stuff. My friend and I have a very, a favorite idiom, which is like, we're all just freestyling out here. Like
that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing on this podcast. Yeah. You go wake up every day. You got to put a plan together and stuff. But,
yeah.
I don't know. I like that. I like talking about that stuff. Thank you for opening up and telling me about those things with you and in your past and the on stage. Wow, that's really interesting. The BDM stuff. That's,
I mean that's like
it's people's outlet. If that's how I can't tell people how to let stuff out.
I also it's also cool to like paint a new narrative around that, like the artful quality of it. I really love to, just showcase a different side that it's not always, and no shade, but it's not always like, patent leather latex and, this like darkness necessarily, but that like you can be exploring things, no matter who you are, what you look like, that there's, as long as you're consensually exploring things, like the world is really cool out there.
What would you say if somebody's like trying to get in it? If somebody, I'm not talking about myself,
okay,
but like,
okay, all right,
no, I'm saying,
go ahead, ask your question, baby.
No, but like people who are like interested in those kinds of things, like how do people ease into that stuff? Because it's kind of
yeah. I mean, I think that you start becoming aware of what you like sensationally, like what you like in terms of like dynamics. I think that you hopefully have someone that you trust to be vulnerable with, like mentally and physically with, that you're engaging in consensual stuff with, because it is a conversation. There's potentially a lot of awkwardness or being like, yep, that wasn't what I was into.
I can
and like,
imagine that.
And there's definitely, and it's, again, it's always like a conversation about like, like, did that make me feel good as inside and as like a physical sensation? And you just sort of like start exploring, and there's no kind of wrong way, as long as you're like, again, having open and honest conversations with yourself and with whoever you're partnering with. That's ultimately like all you can do. I mean, there's tons of apps these days, I think, that like, where you can look specifically for that, but it's like, which I'm not an app gal, but
Is there any stories you have that you feel comfortable sharing publicly, like that have been like kind of funny or crazy or something that stands out over your years of doing those things that you would want to share? Or
Let me think through the story to see if I want to tell it.
Take your time.
Many moons ago, I have a friend back on the East Coast, and we felt safe inviting each other into each other's like sex lives. Like we're like, I can trust you, you know, the person that I'm partner with, you're not going to like run off with them. So we were like trusted thirds. And my friend was dating someone who writes for role-playing games, not sexual necessarily, but like writes for that. So they wrote a role-playing scenario for my friend and I to be like, it was like a whole thing to be like vampires who were like hanging out, or like, no, sorry. Actually, no, let me take it back. We were like having a drink in like a little spot, and then we like saw them in their vampire gear and like followed this like vampire back to their apartment. And then it was like a whole scene, and there was like fake blood involved. And I realized in that moment, I am really not into role playing. Like I'm really not into this. Like the whole time I was just like, I fucking hate this so much. Like I am so uncomfortable. Like this is so corny. And like this could be just really great sex, but we had to ruin it with fucking vampire shit. Like, and I'm like, I'm not like super goth, but I've got some goth vibes. But I was just like, this ain't it. Well, I learned something today. Not into role-playing games. Cool. And I love that people really get into it, and that's like their way of exploring and having fun and being curious and engaging with each other. It just takes me, I'm like too in my head. I'm
the same way. It's too like fake. I don't know. It's too like, I like to be like real in the bedroom. I know. I've tried. I can't. Yeah.
But I was like, there was like a lot of effort, like, and like preparation put into that. Like, it was adorable in many ways, but I was like, yep, okay, well, I learned something here today. Wow.
I don't think I could ever be that. Yo, you know what I thought was always, I've never done this. I'm going to just give you like a fantasy I've had. Like, I think it would be really cool to like sleep with a partner and have like their friend just be in the room watching.
Okay.
I don't know if that's like a narcissistic thing, but like I've always thought like if I was going to start going down that road, and like for me personally, it would be a female watching. I wouldn't want a guy watching. I think that'd be too strange for me. But like that's something that I've always been like, not even like
not
a threesome.
Involved, just like
that would be cool to be involved, but like I don't know, something performing for somebody else would always be kind of like.
I mean, different. I have friends with every type of like kink you can imagine. And like there was, I watch a show called Game Changer. I think Game Changer or Make Some Noise. They're both run by Sam Reich, who it's Dropout TV, which used to be College Humor. But he had a prompt that was like asking these like three players like how to spice things up in the bedroom. And then someone else answered, and I was like, yes, that's actually my shit, where that is kind of the opposite of yours, where it's like actually having someone in the room that you don't want them to know that you're having sex. So you have to be as quiet as possible. Yeah. And the tension that creates is like a whole other level. That's actually one of my things.
No, that's cool. I think I've done that before, but
it adds like a little like, you're like, oh no.
Well, you've never slept with somebody and their roommate was like sleeping in the other's bed or something like that.
I mean, probably.
Yeah, that's the same thing a little bit.
It's like a very like, I don't think I remember those things because I'm like, yeah, whatever.
No, that's like the quiet, the intimacy. You gotta like. I've slept with a girlfriend of mine in like a Victoria's Secret changing room once. I thought that was pretty hot.
Yeah, but ultimately, like, really, it's just like, I mean, it's all of it. Vulnerability, man. Vulnerability. A willingness to like feel dumb, try something out, and a willingness to be like, hey, did you like that? I wasn't really into it. Just, and just like gauging, trying things out, being curious. Yeah. I mean, ultimately we're all freestyling, man.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. So what else? So we've been doing this for an hour and 45.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I mean, I could talk literally forever. So
we can keep going. What are some other things you want to talk about? Like, I'm gonna open the floor up. Like,
yeah, I think that
this is for you. This is your podcast. This is your word that you're putting out to the world.
No, it's your podcast, but yeah, I'm happy to be here and be part of it. I think that I think there were some things I was thinking about in regard to, getting back to some of, I guess, like, my passion in my career as a practitioner of Chinese medicine is primarily in mental health. Like we look at a holistic structure. So mental health is really just one part of the puzzle of the human. And so I could be working on someone's digestion and their mental health improves just, by proxy. But because I got into the music, because I got into this industry, because of my mental health and my own experience with that, it has become a passion of mine. And I think about ways that we can support ourselves as we face like those like hyper speed challenges, like, engaging with so many people per day, like that, like I spoke to earlier about, like, creating that boundary, those boundaries for yourself of keeping yourself safe and checking in and just, I think like, like, do you have practices? Like, have you cultivated practices for yourself that you are truly in the practice of that help your mental health through your job, for instance?
Just from like a day-to-day basis, if like if I can stick to, I think the important things where I'm crushing life, if I can accomplish these things, if I focus on my diet, I get a certain amount of exercise, try to get good quality sleep. If I go outside in the sun and just be outdoors, and there was a fifth one that I forgot. Diet, exercise, sleep, outdoor sunlight, and it was like limiting alcohol. And it's like, that's hard to do all of those on a day-to-day basis, working the late nights as a bartender and, but like when I'm doing those 5, I'm fucking crushing life. So like, that's like a boundary for me. That's like a building block. It's just discipline to do that. So I think discipline, like I know I'm talented in certain things, but like discipline for me has been challenging, especially when you work around alcohol and everyone's always drinking all the time. That's the challenging part. That's one of the reasons why I chose this concept to explore, because it's like, all right. Oh, I'm going to flip it back to you for a question. Yeah. Do you think I'm a hypocrite because I sell alcohol for a living and I promote a podcast platform, trying to get people to understand the benefits of alcohol and the dysfunction that some of the times it can cause? Like sometimes I feel a little hypocritical, but it's like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Taylor, I'm so glad you asked that. Because you're talking to someone who, for the last 6 years, was moving through a graduate program to be a practitioner of medicine and a healthcare provider, meanwhile serving them, alcohol and foods not only serving them those things that may be deleterious to their health and just in general. And then like also just being like, it is 1 a.m. Why are you eating a ribeye? Like even just that, like, so I say that I don't think it's hypocritical. I think that everyone is in charge of their own vessel. You're not in charge of their vessel. They have to make their own decisions about how they're going to lead their lives. And if it wasn't you, it would be someone else, and it's serving them that drink. And also, I think that what you're doing here is creating that balance for yourself of like reflection and leaning more into your purpose. And, and I am a practitioner who I am not going to, unless you've pushed it to an edge of like, I genuinely think if you don't pull back on some of these behaviors, you're going to land yourself in a true world of pain. Like I'm actually, exercising concern, and I'm using like, motivational, like question asking where I'm like, how do you think that you have a problem? Like, unless you're to the point where it is an actual medical concern, I am a practitioner who is like all things in moderation. How can we create balance for the things that you do? If seeing your girlfriends twice a week and sharing a couple glasses of wine or a cocktail creates community and joy and elevates your life experience and your life quality, like if that may outweigh the detriment of what the alcohol is actually doing. And we have all these studies on like how detrimental alcohol, even just one drink a week, can be to our health. And they're not looking at what it can do for community and what community does for our mental health and connectivity does to enhance our lives. And I'm not just using that as a way to like,
no, it's real.
Okay, but it's really real. And so I think that all we have to do is, you know, develop our own personal ethos about how we feel about how we're engaging with, you know, service and alcohol and what we want for people, and just align our actions with our ethos on the day to day.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I can't tell people how to live their lives.
You can't.
It can't be the pasture out there. Oh, you are all going to hell if you don't do this. Like, no, it's freedom of the world. You're free, you know, free country. You can do whatever you want. And I think that, like, I guess, again, I'll just say this, like, I created this because I kept hearing the same thing over and over again from these people who work in the industry and struggle. So I was like, let's, you know, and I'm like, damn, bro, I'm struggling with some of that stuff too. So I you know, but
and I think that like the thing is that we don't have to be hypocrites. Like, we don't have to say, Mr. Smith, I think, like, I see you have 3 drinks a week or 3 drinks a night every night, and that's bad for you. You're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But what we can do as, you know, to be aligned in our ethos and not be like telling people how to live their lives is talking about the exciting things that you're doing outside of the bar. Yeah. Oh my gosh, have you ever taken that hike up to such and such? Have you ever done this? You should join me in this thing. Have you ever listened to this? And get them excited about other things that they may not be able to do if they're hungover on the day to day, and that may naturally help create the momentum for them to make a couple changes. Maybe it's just 2 drinks a night, you know?
Yeah, I think that, like, again, like from what you said about the social aspect, it is there is all this science and data about what alcohol does to us, but like if you look at the reverse of that, what happened over COVID, where people don't have that community to go to, it's probably worse. Yeah. I don't know about that. Probably is maybe not the best word to use, and that's like why I like Stout Public House, is because it's like that's what people come in for, is like a beer and a chat. And it's that talking, it's that uplifting. And it's like, that's what I try to do. I genuinely try to do that in my job, is like talk to people for a living and listen to them. Now, does that get overwhelming? And am I on my A game every day? And do I get burnt out? And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can, when it's the same thing every night I go into work. Yeah, it's a struggle. But when I'm doing those things, like I talked about, exercising, eating healthily, not drinking, sleeping, I have more energy and I'm better at my job and I'm better at this podcast. And that's what we're doing here today. Yeah. So it's like the two ways, you know, it's like, I could just share my experience and my thoughts. And if people connect with it, they connect with it. If they think I'm a fucking idiot, then that's what it is, you know? Yeah.
And I just think that there are such like little things that we can do. One thing that is on my mind, it's come up for me throughout the years in the industry, is I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker. I have been a singer, so I can be smoking. Yeah, I be smoking. But these motherfuckers who smoke get to go take their smoke breaks. Do you know what I think we really should normalize?
What's that?
Some way for anyone and everyone to have the same like understanding and respect when you're like, I'm going to go take a blank break. And because when we say I'm going to go take a breath outside, I need a minute, or I'm going to go take a walk outside, there's this like, oh, he or she is having a moment. And there's this like whole other stigma around why you're taking a moment versus like, I'm gonna go grab a smoke. And what are you doing? You're standing out, you're removing yourself from an environment, taking a moment, stepping outside and taking a few deep breaths is really what you're doing. You're slowly inhaling through, you know, a fucking toxic stick, whatever, and exhaling and taking a moment for yourself that lasts however long it lasts, depending upon what kind of cigarette brand you're smoking. But like to create a culture where you can say like, well, I'm going to go take a block, whatever it is, and whatever language you use around it, where people are like, oh, hell yeah. Or like, I'm going to go join you. Like, yeah, let's, and then you get a moment to like, I need 3 deep. I know that not that I need it, but like, ooh, I'm so excited because I know when I go outside and I take 5 deep breaths and I come back in, I've got a chiller, refreshed attitude about how to deal with these ding dongs. Or like, I'm back in touch with the like, okay, now I can be silly again because I'm back in my authenticity.
Well, here's the thing. People forget we're on stage.
Yeah.
And when you're on stage for 8 hours,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, dude. When's the last time you saw a play where the star was up there for 8 hours?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right, what else? I'm trying to think. I really like the things you have to share. Very interesting. It's making me think about all this stuff.
I do have like I have one other thing I was thinking about. I listened to your to the episode with your friend. Was it Chelsea? Sorry.
Her name is Saya. It's so okay.
Yeah.
So she yeah.
Okay, I was trying to not misremember. She is in like yoga practice and breathwork stuff and really great things. And I think that there are, for the person who likes to go to the gym and isn't a yoga person, that looking at the places in our lives where we build a tolerance for distress, where we do reps to failure and we are feeling that tension in our body and we like want to give up and we have to do 2 more reps or whatever that is. Realizing that is a skill that we can bring into other aspects of our lives in regard to like the tolerance we have for uncomfortable situations at work or people that are frustrating, just sort of like building that as a muscle. Just the idea of distress tolerance and like being mindful of that like we have the ability to
push ourselves.
Yeah. And not just push ourselves, but to like, handle hard things more so.
Adversity. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just like, and it's a practice for me and it's like it truly is a constant practice. But that's something that has been on my mind a lot. I listened to I think it was a Huberman. Was it a Huberman? Huberman podcast about like, he was interviewing someone about I think it was an addiction episode actually, and talking about like looking at your day like a weather map and like being like, here are some areas of my day where like I might get into a little bit of trouble. I'm working my Tuesday shift. I know on Tuesdays so and so comes in and I have a really hard time handling that person, knowing that you are likely going to face some bad weather. So preparing yourself, you're bringing your rain jacket, you're bringing your umbrella, you're doing the things you need that day, knowing that like you're possibly going to like land yourself in areas that are a little bit more challenging. So I
like that. Positive self-talk, I think, is really important.
Yeah, totally.
Just like visualizing, like saying good things about yourself. I'm going to crush today. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to get through these things. And I'm going to go to work and I'm going to put a smile on my face when I go to work. I think like just positive self-talk for your attitude is like, I have gratitude. Your job might suck. Your home, whatever, it might suck, but it's like, yo, I get to earn a living today. I get to be here. I get to work at this bar and make this money and build these relationships and build the skill. When I change my mind to like, I get to do these things, it like really makes a difference in how I approach it. Like I get to do this podcast today. I get to come on here and pick your brain and interview you, and
well, I do think that like, I mean, there is data about, gratitude. We, has this again, like the health halo stigma of, like gratitude practice, but it truly, there is proven neuroplastic evidence about how it shapes your brain. And, because it can be, and it can be things where instead if gratitude isn't a word that, that appeals to us, you can say things like, you know, where did I find delight today? Or like, you know, what could I delight in? And that can sometimes like be helpful if you're not feeling particularly grateful in a chapter of your life because things are really challenging. I make a point to similarly, like, just sort of like developing a personal ethos and really ensuring that I try my best to like operate out of that daily. And so that's like sort of, you know, if my ethos is to, you know, is to help people find fulfillment, for instance, and joy, and help walk them to a path of joy and wellness. And that is everyone. That's not just people who are in my office as patients, but it's, you know, people that I'm in proximity to in a service industry job, food and beverage service. It's someone who I interact with at the cashier, you know, the cashier at a grocer or whatever. It's like, if I'm going to interact with them, how does the interaction like show an open self, honor that person? And it doesn't need to be crazy. And I'm not talking about having a conversation with every single person. It's just that knowing that like I'm not out of alignment with the things that I say, you know?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. I feel you.
Wow. Biggest sigh. Big sigh guy there. Yeah, but those are some things that like are on my mind a lot, because I think that it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle of your job, especially when, again, like if you're working in the service industry, you're working that long day, you're getting shitty rest because it's odd hours, and then you wake up, you don't feel great in your body. Maybe you're not, you know, in the practice of doing those great things for your body, like eating well and exercising and getting out in the sunlight or whatever. And you're just doing this shuffle, and then you're just like blindly like
going through
moving.
life.
You're just motions.
Going through life. And
you
it's
know?
just like it becomes years and then decades of that. And then you're just like, this is my life. And
a thing that I wanted to touch on, one last 10th thing.
You can talk about whatever you like.
Is purpose. And finding and having purpose in life doesn't have to be some big crazy thing. And maybe it's not your ultimate purpose, but like understanding what you want your purpose in life to be in this chapter that you're in, wherever you are, is, I think, so important to one's esteem and worth and value, and then ultimately only helps us show up better. And one thing that I was having a really, 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 really challenging time this year. I went through a lot of like things, even just like things like my graduate program ended. I was in an internship at a children's hospital, and I saw a lot of like heartbreaking things. I lost a couple kids on my shift, like heartbreaking things, grief, things that created grief. And also when I graduated and ended my internship, like that whole community went away. And those micro griefs of like people I'm never going to see again, patients I'm never going to see again, you know, colleagues and cohort members that I'm never going to see again. And then like left TERP, and I was like studying 8 hours a day for my board exams. I had to get off social media to isolate myself, to be focused on my studies. I wasn't really going out because I was so focused, and I was in grief, and I wasn't in service anywhere. There was nowhere in my life where I was in service. And I remembered something my godmother had said like a few years back. And then my mom actually brought it back up. As she's like, yeah, you know, you should really volunteer. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I kept be like, yeah, I should volunteer somewhere. And then I was reading a book by this author, Martha Beck, about like finding your North Star. And there's a passage in it where she relays a story about a journalist interviewing this guy, this like handsome firefighter who would like volunteer his time in the community somewhere. And he's like, I don't think volunteering is newsworthy. I don't know why you're really here. Like, I think it's something we should all be doing for our community. And I was like, that's it. That I'm being pinged. I put down the book. I opened up my phone. I was like, let me look at some volunteer opportunities. And I found the thing that was for me, because I love kiddos, and which is why I wanted to be in a pediatric internship. And I found a really amazing opportunity to tutor refugee kids in City Heights, and being part of that organization for a handful of months was such a shift into my vibe, my mental health, my like being in service to something. And I think that like I think that, you know, your question earlier about like, am I a hypocrite? And it's like, I think many of us do have this feeling of like, what am I doing? I'm like putting liquor in cups for people. And like, we want to be in service. We love people, but the thing that we're doing maybe isn't so great for the people, and kind of like wrestling with that. I think many people wrestle with that. And I think like, if there's a piece of you, a kernel of you that's like, I really want to be in service to people, I guarantee you like 99.99999% of the service population, if they volunteered an hour's worth of their time to doing something like cool that made them feel good about themselves and what they're giving back, would like change their lives, like I think pretty dramatically.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's my experience. Again, like I am such a like lover, giver, community person. So for me, that really spoke to me. But I do think that like people who are service oriented, doing, you know, something periodically, you know, hopefully consistently, because I think it helps build a sense of like worth and being part of a different type of community, but seeing that like how much they can add to something bigger than themselves. I just think it's invaluable. It really is such an incredible thing. Yeah.
That's pretty, yeah. I can't remember the last time that I did like volunteer hours or something like that.
But I think, but yes. But also,
just trying to,
you're not monetizing this yet. And granted, it is a personal project,
right?
But I do think that like it's aligned with your purpose. It's like you exploring like, I want to be part of a bigger message. I want to like give things back to a community. I want to grow community. I want to bring people together. I want to share ideas.
Yeah,
I want people to be
concept.
excited about. I mean, I think that is being of service also, in a, you know.
I think so too. I agree. Yeah, it is a concept. It's like you want people to enjoy their time, you know? And if I can sort of, you know, like I hope like people do reach out to me and say they connect with it, and that's the goal, is like for people to enjoy this. Like it's like that's the best. I don't really focus on numbers. I focus on like the product. Do people enjoy listening to this? And my feedback I've gotten is it's not perfect, but yeah, they do. Like, and I can tell by the way people look at me and they say, they're like, yo, I really enjoyed that. It's like, that's fucking cool. You know, it's like when you make art and it's like received well, it's like, oh wow, you know, so.
Yeah.
Well, cheers, dude.
Cheers.
Unless there's anything else you'd like to say, you know.
7-hour podcast.
No, it was only 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Cool. Yeah. No, I think that is, I mean, I really could talk forever. I'm so passionate about so many of these aspects that you bring into your podcast, and not like physical health. There's so much I could say about, you know, how we can support ourselves, but you know, we'll touch back on it. But ultimately, like, yeah, I love the message and the curiosity around, you know, how we can support ourselves and support each other. Love it.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you.